Welcome to Warblog. Today we are looking at Advance on ABBA. See, I'm sort of getting a bit back into getting some old things in. Although there's Claw Eagle, which is the current Turkish operation in Iraq, which doesn't look very well. Whatever. Anyway. I haven't done this one, but I don't think I will, but put this one together. Quite interested in the Nigerian Civil War. There's a good book on it. Is it by someone? It might be easier for me to just do it like this. There's two books I just want to mention quickly. Yeah. So this is the book I was thinking about. John D. St. John. I've been keeping my eye out on this for a long time, but I don't understand how they can put £1,264 for a book collectible from £66. But that looks like a good book. But I've also come across this one, which is not the Nigerian Civil War, but it looks quite interesting. One of the things I always sort of look for are the number of pages. So that's a lot of pages, and that it was sort of not so much pre-internet, but pre-sort of current internet. It is book 98 of a series, so it makes you wonder. but just quickly, one other thing. When I was looking at the Nigerian Civil War page, there's quite a few books, and there's more than I thought it would. This is the Asaba Massacre, which I know nothing about. Hang on. There we go, there's the Nigerian Civil War. There's no picture for it. I think this looks like a good one. The Biafran War. And I think this one is one that I've actually looked at with an intention of buying it. I think there's quite a lot in that. There's quite a lot of books. To be quite honest, I think I was on the verge of buying this one. £320 pages, a recent edition. I think the reason I didn't buy it is because it looks expensive, but there is a sort of look into it. And I think it's sort of sectioned by interesting anecdotes. Maybe that's why I didn't really get into it. But yeah, obviously books are really interesting, and I like getting books and referring to things. So I like getting books and referring to things and all that sort of stuff. But the thing that sort of got me, so to speak, I don't know, I'm talking around just storing there. Basically, what I've been doing a bit of is looking at old newspapers, and so I've got this link, and I've been looking at the old newspapers, and this is sort of something that I've wanted to be doing for a long time. And so this is a link to the time, as well, it goes up to 1980. I thought it went up to 1990, but it only goes, I don't think it went up to 1980. So you basically sort of type something in, like here I've got Nigerian War between 1960 and 1970. I'm not sure whether that was the original, because I've probably put in the years, but so there's this article stated by Michael Morphers, Ihie, near Aba, Nigeria, August 29th, obviously 1968. And, that's a source of history. Now, pretty much all it says is that he's in Ihie there, and they're about to march on Aba, which is under there. This isn't too dissimilar to a South Front article that says troops are going from here to there. So I know you just plonk things together. But when you consider those books that I sort of mentioned, and the St. Jar one is is the one that I think I really want, but I can't find a copy of it. I mean, they're impossible to buy. But that's the one I want, because it's sort of written in 72, which is just after it, and so it's going to be far less. They were far more sort of pragmatic back then. I mean, you don't have to go back as far as 72 for that. Anything before like 1990 is probably okay. Even later than that, but more and more recently, books are just people are just churning them out, and I think you need a little more caliber back then to release one, especially something on the Nigerian Civil War. I feel like writing a book, and then come up with that. So I have looked into his background. He's done a few more, but I get the feeling it's a strong book. 444 pages. That's sort of irrelevant. But the point is, you can buy these books, and you only get a certain amount of history. But when you look at these newspaper articles, you get probably a clearer insight into the what I call the kinetic dynamics of war, the ebb and flow of things. He's actually got flowery prose, which is peculiar writing, but it is a sort of more of an article. Federal Nigerian, he calls him Federal Nigerian. See, I don't really understand much of this, but it's presumably that must mean it's a federation or something. Federal Nigerian troops are closing each day on the Igbo heartland. So the first thing to do is sort of think, well, what is the Igbo heartland? I mean, there is a Wikipedia on the Nigerian Civil War, but it's sort of very political, and most sort of histories, military histories, tend to focus more on the politics, and I sort of don't really care about any of that. I mean, I'm interested in that as background, but this, I mean, to be quite often say this is a newspaper report from the Times, and a lot of the reasons I do what I do, and the justification I have for what I do, is because I can remember being a child, and I think that it sounds odd. Alex, putting some stress on that in the sense that, to me that's actually quite important, and I often think, well, that was important. What I consider now, my perceptions are not what I consider to be of the same value as they were when I was a child. When I say a child, I mean sort of between the age of 16 and 30. I mean, and maybe later. But when I start showing you might read this article. Now, this was before I was born, but not long. But basically, you'd read this and you sort of think Federal Nigerian troops are closing each day on the Igbo heartland, and it's a bit like sort of in the 1930s and 1940s, where people would read things with acute interest, because they didn't get anything like this. This would have been really interesting because it was from Nigeria. Where's that? But anyway, so we're learning, and so obviously, as I said, we can try and figure out, but obviously the Igbo heartland will be key in understanding the Nigerian Civil War from the sort of, the kinetic dynamic perspective. Ihie, where I watched the forward troops preparing to advance still closer to Aba, is nothing more than a cluster of empty huts, a pen mark on a brigade commander's map. What he's referring to is that. Now, he does actually say that they just passed through it, so I thought I would give it the sort of section before they just passed through it. So he's actually stood in there, so this is like a moments before they enter there, or maybe a couple of days. I haven't really put much emphasis on anything else like the terrain or the geography. I think I could have maybe done that, but so he stood in there. That's what he's talking about. A few miles further back on the road from Port Harcourt, we have seen a few miles farther back on the road from Port Harcourt, we have seen Ihie, a small crossroads where a little battle was fought before Biafran forces withdrew. Right, this is why I'm getting confused, because Ihie is not Abba. Right, so basically there was a small battle in Ihie, so there I've missed a trick really, haven't I? Because presumably a few miles back this way, even possibly there is Ihie. And I could have taken Ihie, then Ihie, and then move on to Abba, and then obviously on to the next place, which I can't, the thing is I don't know where it is, it's either there or there. I suspect it's over here, it's like Owerri or something. We'll get onto it. So essentially we develop, this is a source of history as far as I'm concerned, but it also reflects on the sort of thing that I might have read, and that's, it's very sort of, well, he's talking there, his narrative is not helping to save people, and it's all about a geographical perspective. That's what he's describing. A few miles, he's in Ihie, preparing as troops prepare to advance towards Abba. A few miles farther back on the road, they've seen Ihie, a small crossroads where where a little battle was fought before Biafran forces withdrew. It says for most of the time, it's possible to see this advance as soldiers' exercise. A soldier's exercise. And he sort of talks about this. I think it's interesting. I'll just go through it because this is what I think is key on my interest. It's sort of the narrative and how it builds up. The gently spoken commanders, with their correct Sandhurst English, must have practiced infantry movements scores of times under their British instructors. The pattern here is all too simple. Now I can't replicate this pattern, but the first move is made with armoured vehicles, the Saladins and the Panhards, the Ferrets, which lay a thick rain of shells across enemy positions. The infantrymen advanced to pursue an enemy outgunned and starved of supplies. So you've got the vision there, and this is why I put, well, I don't know why it's so small. It's 80%. There we go. So there's three lots of mechanised in there. So you can see it, 1, 2, 3, 4. So you're supposed to move in with the Panhards and whatever. So they're all from the 14th Brigade, and they're actually the 5th Division, but I haven't marked that up on the counters. You can get all this from this article. It would seem like an exercise if there were not the sudden shock of Biafran dead, their corpses left unburied, rotting in waterlogged ditches. The flesh putrefies in the heat, and the skin turns gleaming white, so that the soldiers cry "mercenary" as they point to the bodies at the roadside. It's sort of not exactly what I would say is what I remember reading, but this is, I think, quite a clear sort of, gives you a quite clear sort of objective idea of what's happening. I just don't think you'd see reporting like this these days, and I think it's, to some extent, I think it's done better than. I think it's a sign of the times. You've got to wonder whether or not we're getting any reporting anymore. Whether it's, I feel that this is reporting is there doing his job, as opposed to maybe indoctrination. It doesn't say the evil Islamic State put up a cowardly defence as the brave Allied forces advanced in moral superiority or something like that. There is a hint of that in here, actually. We'll get onto that maybe. The Federal soldiers often talk to mercenaries. Earlier on the road to Owerri, that's where they go next, and I don't know where that is. I looked it up and I can't find it, so it's probably sort of maybe a town that's had its name changed. When Lieutenant Colonel George Innih, commander of the 14th Brigade, so that's where I got the 14th Brigade, and as you'll see, the Lieutenant Colonel is the Chief of Staff for the Army's 3rd Division down there, so 14th Brigade, 3rd Division. So they're talking about these things, and they sort of structure their terminology around the divisions, the brigades, where they are, where they come from, where they're going. Something about their structure and the ease and the tactics that are using to get there. And this is what I consider to be sort of war reporting, really. And, there's no politics in here. But, they are not afraid that we would be targets. So essentially it comes down here. He led me within a few hundred yards of the enemy positions. His staff urged us to keep our voices low and stay out of sight. We were not afraid that we would be targets, but the Biafrans, seeing a white face in the front line, would say the Nigerians were fighting the ground battle with mercenaries. Lieutenant Colonel Godwin Ali, Chief of Staff for the Nigerian Army's 3rd Division, which mans the whole southeast battlefront. You see, the southeast battlefront, I've just jumped into this, and, bit by bit, I really, this is why I do war blogs. I sort of think, I really want to sort of, understand this. So when it says, for example, if someone would have talked to me about Idlib, I'd know pretty much where they were going, what they were talking about. If they were talking about the M5 highway, I'd sort of know what was going on. If they were talking about Palmyra, I'd sort of know vaguely where that is and, the multiple battles that took place there. If they're talking about Mosul or Euphrates or, those sorts of areas, etc., etc., but I don't have that with the Nigerian Civil War, but, and digging down into it, this is why I sort of don't like the Second World War, because it's also done and dusted. Everyone knows everything about everything. And no one knows anything about the Nigerian Civil War. If you get the Lakar book, maybe, and a few of those other books, maybe, but a lot of them, they're not like this. They're more, those books seem to me to be narratives about, anecdotal narratives. With this, what I'm trying to do, and with war blogs, to build up a chronological sequence of, the kinetic dynamics of armies moving across the ground, where they were, when, what they did. And a lot of it's not particularly exciting, but that's the essence of it. And that's what you don't get with missile war, air war, sea war to some extent, but, it's all more, it's not quite the same. It's nothing like the sight of sort of tanks driving majestically across the Nigerian plains, followed by infantry support and artillery barrages, etc., etc. So if we see a mercenary, he said, basically the Lieutenant Colonel said, if we see a mercenary, we do not spare him. He has no business here. He is coming to die anyway. Colonel Innie said that when his men took a position, the enemy would counterattack with droves of men, but few had rifles or ammunition, and many were in ordinary clothes. So we're 68 here, 1968. Ali suggested that the Biafrans fought without uniforms because they were without the cloth to make them. And that's interesting, really, because it's sort of a game of sign of the time, because if you were to consider why they didn't have uniforms these days, it would be because they were undisciplined or because they couldn't get the uniforms. To actually get the cloth to make the uniforms takes us back to, an era where manufacturing had a different paradigm. If one had doubts about the importance of this war of arms supplied from Britain and the rest of Europe, the doubts are dispelled as one moves up the Aba and Owerri roads from the coast. Now I want to find out where Owerri is. But let's just reiterate this, isn't it? If one had doubts about the importance of this war of arms supplied from Britain, so I don't quite know what that means, but I know what the next implication means. The trail is marked clearly with the shiny black cases in which 76mm shells are packed. The cases are plainly marked United Kingdom Government Explosive and have War Department markings. The rifleman's cases show Belgium or Spanish markings. The 3rd Division is advancing inexorably towards Ihie. Is that what we're talking about here, the 3rd Division? Yeah, 3rd Division. So they're marching inexplorably towards Ihie and Owerri. So that's the next thing I'm going to do. Where I was going to do it to this video, but I feel like delving into the article. It just, it's just interesting. 2 of the 3 key cities held by Ibos, but the commanders say, and I think with sincerity, that they are not pushing hard to capture the cities. What we destroy, we will have to pay to rebuild after the war, one of them told me. The commanders, including men from eastern minority tribes who have known Ibos all their lives, want the war to stop. They say they are holding back in the hope of a negotiated agreement, perhaps in Addis Ababa. There's another bit. While a faint hope remains that they use the time for their delicate manoeuvres, an operation to clear a road between 2 forward battalions, a plan to cut the road between Owerri and Ihie so that neither centre can reinforce the other. The engineers repair the roads damaged by mines or explosives, and soldiers hack at the huge trees the Biafrans have felled to block the road behind their retreat. So we've got engineering sort of implications there. I'm not going to go on much more because I don't particularly think that I've read much more of it. I have actually. I've got past that bit, but I'll just sort of zoom through it so that if you choose to read it, you can stop the whatever. So there we have it. So basically, I can't remember what my exact point was, but basically what I'm trying to get to here is research, historical sources, in combination with other things, and building up a chronology and history of the wars using that. I mean, I've just been doing some work on the 1950s, and there's quite a lot on the Korean War. Articles on the Korean War, and you sort of think, well, that's really good. Now, one of the things I would say is that, again, you'd have to sort of put things together and analyse them and consider them. But I think to some extent, one of my, not so much a failing, but I think they were probably going up the road. Whether or not they had forces sweeping across in a line like this, this is why I sort of put them on, this is on this road, and this is on this road. The operations within the boundaries of these tracks, it's probably not that relevant. So we've actually got roads coming up all of these places, but this is the main road. So what we're going to do, now my game doesn't really reflect what they described in the manoeuvres thing, with the mechanised going in first. I mean, in this battle we will have mechanised with infantry support. Now I'm doing it like that deliberately. I would otherwise put these on the road so that they can do things, but so we represent that activity by a combined battle. So this combined battle here is, it's just sort of like, well, that's one hex thing, isn't it? It's just one thing, but it's actually quite involved. I mean, you could probably take that down and play some sort of, more tactical game on how to do that. It does often interest me, that sort of level. I'm not really interested in the tactical thing, but the fact that you could probably model quite a lot more if you had the appropriate modelling system. But I think it becomes a lot more complex, because you need to know the sort of ranges of guns, the type of ordnance used, and I'm not really interested in that. I think the lower down you go, the nearer to death you get. Death is quite abstract at this scale, accompanying up, and it's not even really accompanying up. I just use that as a sort of convenient brace. But so all that sort of toing and froing is all encapsulated in here. We do have some artillery, and it's all over here. So let's use some of it. Now, one other thing maybe to note is that everything's infantry. There's no irregulars, because I think, well, to start off with, I think that they were probably fighting more along the lines of a synchronous war as opposed to asynchronous, where both sides are operating as military units. I've given them threes, not so much to reflect the state that they were described as, but to balance the game up a little, but also to reflect the fact that they are probably quite fanatical and putting up as much resistance as they can. So they're not necessarily going to be a walkover if you don't get it right, but with the technology that they've got, this shouldn't be too difficult. When I say technology, I mean the hardware with the C. Yeah, so they've eliminated that unit. So we're doing what they said, they've just got into Ihie, and this is what the reporter is basing his article on. They've just entered Ihie, and they're now preparing for march towards Aba. Now it does say that Owerri, wherever it is, you can remember what it said. Owerri is somewhere else, and I've probably said this before, but I'm not sure whether it's sort of over here or over here. The road seems to go either sort of straight up, or it actually seems to go round. You don't get it this sense because of this awkward junction, but it sort of seems to go like that. If you were to sort of maybe look at how it is, it goes like that. And like that. So it's one of these roads. I think it's over here. Look at that. Okay. So essentially that's this position to start off with. Now here, you can say, well, we're pushing up. But this is artistic license. There's nothing in the article to suggest that they actually had a wide front. But I would imagine they would have something. So the main battle thrust is going up here. If they'd held on, that would have been easier, but we've now got a clear road. And the question is, can we advance in there? Probably not, because they're dug in. Ooh. That's interesting. Let's begin, I guess. exchange. So the battle's not going very well on this side or this side, so maybe what we should have done is considered placing some mechanized and splitting them up a bit. I don't want to try that there and I don't want to try that there, so that's it. So a bit of a disappointing first turn, but I think I could, not so much put that down to anything. I can say, well, we need to learn that lesson. Just that's a prime. I mean, if you're playing a game, before you sort of develop the strategies, you've got to at least get a sense for the dynamics and what actually happens. We know these are quite tough sections. The question is, does he stay there? He'll probably die next turn. But I think they're going to hold. They're going to hold. They're going to hold. Question is, what do we want to do with our reserves? So we've got some over here, here, in particular here, but also here. For example, we can move him forward into that position. But we really want to sort of protect this area. This is where all the forces are going to come up afterwards. So what do we want to bring down there? Well, we can put some motorized. We're sort of in the wrong position there, really. Can they get there? No. Sometimes it sneaks in due to a programming glitch. I'm going to leave them in there, but it seems stupid to it seems stupid to leave the artillery in there like that. Oh, hang on. That is Abba. There. This is not Abba. This is the village between Ihie and Abba. Right. I'm going to leave everything there. I think this is maybe the only one. I do feel that even that. Okay, do we want to counterattack there? No, we've got artillery. It's in the wrong position. But as they approach Abba, we'll be able to fire, so that's okay. Here. We'll leave there and recover. And we'll recover there. So, Nigerian's second turn. Well, the artillery didn't have to do a retreat because they're artillery. These units messed up. Let's see what we can do here with the artillery. No effect. 0.3. 1.4. It's a real battle for that place. Okay, so we've got that. Something there. We want to do that. I think we've got to take some chances. Exchange. Okay. Right. Here, I think I'm going to recover with that. I'll leave these as they are. It's an interesting situation really. Here, I'm going to recover with that, but they might lose the unit. And this would bring him down. Oh look, they're in range of the artillery. That could be a game changer. Oh, look at that, 5.4. I want to recover with him, but he's only worth 1 and we're worth 3, so this should be a 3 to 1. Interesting. What about here? I'm very tempted to run. In actual fact, the Nigerians have made a big error, and I'm going to call them on it. Can you guess what it is? Obviously, I can't hear anything you say or think. I'm going to attack this artillery. It's all artillery, which means it should have like 1, 2, 3 defense divided by, what is it, 0.8, whatever, 8. It's going to be less than 1 or something, maybe about half. Let's see what their defense is. 0.6. So we just managed to really pound their artillery. No, I'm not going to go with motorised against mechanised. It's interesting. What I like about what's happening here is we've got a front line that's not sort of maintained with a solid line. We've got this sort of section here, this section here, this section here, and this one here. I mean, this is holding this line up. Right. Nigerian turn. All depressions. leave that much further. It should be easier to hit. Okay, here. Trying to decide whether I'm just playing badly, or whether I should reduce their strength. Let's try an attrition. Yes, that'll give us a sense of, it seems to come up with a very reasonable sort of odds factor. So it would have been a 1-to-1. Got them. Okay. Well, we want to find our artillery again. 1, 2, 3, 4. Maybe we can destroy that. Right. Routed. I think it's nice to get a unit off the table. Should be 3-to-1. So we're not truly holding our own down here. Look at that. Blown away. Okay. Right. The Nigerian turn. We really want to get these. Need to get them there. North of Owerri. We had a serious failure down in this quarter, but we should recover. And push those back. Okay, 3-to-1. Let's go for it. Might only go 2-to-1. 3-1 in the exchange. And still not winning over here at all. At least we've got something, but they'll just recover something. Okay, well, see that they've come into range, which is stupid of them. We can't really attack them. Over here, what do we do? I think we should put this in there. He's holding his own quite well. Let's leave that, leave that. What do we do here? I leave that as a strategic reserve. I like the way it's sort of, both players don't have much to do, but they're quite important bits that they do have to do. But here it seems to be that the battle and the tide of the battle will turn. Let's get a drawing tool out just to sort of so I think what's going to happen is there's going to be some sort of turn here. And here it's going to be sadly static. I know I hadn't calculated the odds for you, but 1-to-1 is pretty tight. Should be able to win. Ihie, someone will win something. That was tight. Should be a 0. Yeah, 1-to-1, it might be worth doing. I think we're going to have to try a long shot just to speed things up a bit. This is a risk. Exchange. Okay. So, obviously we've got artillery. I'll be able to get rid of that. Right, so we're nice and strong there. If we want to counter-attack, we'll leave it there. Let's fight this unit. Should be a 3 or 4-to-1. Pushed him back. And let's see if we can destroy this unit. And here, is it worth fighting something? 5, 2, 5, 1. No, I don't think I'm going to push because this one underneath is. Oh, he's on 5 depression, so. Do we want to try and fight that? Yeah, let's give it a go. Oh, yes. Right, well, we've got artillery now. So. We're about 5.8, 3.3, 1. Into the road. Exchange. I'm going to do this 1-to-1 because it's getting late. Exchange, so the battle rages. And here, 1, 5, 0. Far more desperate fighting than I think historically happened. DR. We move them out of that position. DR again. And they're falling into the arms of the enemy. Not great odds, but let's do it. Second retreat. Okay. This is a clever game. I don't think I'm going to adjust it, not because I don't think it's realistic. One reason I'm going to adjust it because it's not as I intended, but I think it's balanced enough to make it worthwhile just leaving it there so that the game effect is sort of, because in theory it's quite balanced and you could do it or not do it. To do it historically would be to reduce the strength so that they could just walk over, and it's a little more of a boring game, but what does Biafra want to do is it going to lose those units next turn, possibly. They're both motorised, let's pull them out, but there isn't really much. Oh, they can go. What's he on? 6. Let's fight our way out. DR. Wow, that's a front line. Look at that. Devastating. What is happening to the Nigerian offensive? Maybe it's a bit early. This isn't strong. It's only a few minutes, so I'm not going to take it any further. They're all sort of stuck, aren't they? Do I want to bring him down to support this? Yeah, let's do that. Okay, so we've got 2 minutes. Paint all out, just give it a quick sort of review. So obviously it's sort of like that. I think there's going to be a strong push here. Strong push here, but the Biafrans can almost clean up here. Well, what does that mean for this? They really need, I think, they don't have the choice. I think they've got to fall back, and it might be too late, because these units could very possibly, it's the Nigerian turn, push into there. But we've got to get the artillery 2, 3, 4 closer. Really interesting. Yes. I'm quite pleased with that one. Okay, well I'll leave it at that, and I'll speak to you later. And in the meantime, I'll try and find out where Owerri is and see if we can get that one done. Cheerio.